the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right. Committee meetings operate under rules which are adopted to improve information flow to the public, make it easier for the parents, guardians, and the public to talk with us. And we have a public comment session for about 12 minutes right here, and ask you to please keep your time under 3 minutes if possible. Anyone from the public here to speak? Seeing none, we will have one later at the end of the meeting as well. All right, moving on to correspondence and recognition. Bunch of recognition today. Connor James turned all 4 judges' chairs in the blind auditions of The Voice, securing a spot on this season's show. He was a rainwater player here at VR, and when he was needed to play Teen Angel, he flew back, because once a rainwater player, always a rainwater player. Take a moment to commend Lisa White and Kelly Barron, staff and parents whose dedications to our student made this rainwater really work. And just a reminder that Hadestown is coming up, the teen edition, at the beginning of May, and I'm sure we'll hear more about rainwater from the Student Advisory Council as we go through our spring meetings. A special thank you to Walsh Moving Company for supplying the district with some much needed office furniture. Obviously, it's the generosity of folks like these in the community who help us keep our costs down and help us replace broken things. Bridging Lives, a substance-free coalition at the high school. 5 members, including the co-presidents, Kayla Varnum and Corey Cahill, went down to national leadership training in DC, and from all accounts, it was a very successful and very good meeting that everyone learned a lot from. Case and Falk, buzzer beating shot, who made it onto ESPN. Great job, Casey. VR wrestling team has won the D2 South Championship, and they'll be joining us in a future meeting to be recognized. On February 14th, BMS held a Be Like Bewley Day, the Day of Kindness, honoring the legacy of former base director David Bewley. And once again, this year, DECA will compete at the state level. The competition begins tomorrow and Friday at the Seaport Convention Center in Boston. We wish them all luck. And then, on March 15th, if there's not enough on your calendar, this is a really important one, and I'd suggest people go, is the Bridgewater Rainham Educational Foundation Corporation will hold its 4th annual gala. You can look that up on the web. The foundation supports innovative programs outside the operational budget that wouldn't be available to our students and staff. It's run by the past school committee members, Mrs. Holbrook, Mr. Nolan, Dr. Krasnowski, and it's a great time, and encourage people to buy tickets early, because I imagine it will sell out once again. Other than that, we had many emails continuing to be concerned about the budget. We just did, as I said, meet with the budget subcommittee, and you'll hear more from that from Mrs. King later in the meeting. Senator Duner came down to visit us at Bridgewater Rainham a couple weeks back. We got to take her on a tour of the school and lobby her for more support from the state coming toward the district. She was very sympathetic to our needs and promised to look into what she could to try to help us out. And again, we continue to struggle with our audio downstairs at the auditorium, and a few folks have been trying diligently, and I'd like to thank Jeff Fowler specifically on that for trying to make sure we have the right audio set up that we can hear in the auditorium and also out on our YouTube channel. So we continue to be aware of that, and we continue to try to work on it. That was all I had for correspondence and recognition. Mr. Powers, do you have anything else?
No, the only other thing, and I know Ms. Watson will talk about it, we had a National Merit finalist, she will mention that, but also our debate team. I'm not sure how they made out, but we had several of our students participate in the debate finals today. Actually, we hosted, and it was quite the event to go see. I know the finals might actually be over by now, but hopefully we get an update on that.
Okay, great. Moving on to educational reports, Mrs. King, PR Student Advisory Council.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to invite Quincy Ellington from UC.
Good evening to all. Today I would like to share the amazing once-in-a-lifetime experience that was spent in Quebec over February break. On Monday, February 17th, 15 students, including myself, embarked on an 8-hour bus ride to Quebec City in Canada. Once we arrived, we were greeted by our tour guide, Kat, who gave us so much information and was overall such a sweet person. On that Monday, we went tobogganing, got crepes for dinner, and walked all around the upper town of the city and saw many landmarks. On Tuesday, we went out to breakfast, dog sledding, and had free time in the lower town to choose a lunch place with our peers. After lunch, we went to the St. Anne-de-Beaupré Church into the Montmorency Falls, the tallest waterfall in the province of Quebec. Then for dinner, we went to a sugar shack, which makes its own maple syrup and serves many courses and has live music to dance to. On Wednesday, we went to a different breakfast place, a hotel made completely of ice, and went to an iconic tubing park with so many different types of snowy hills. Then, the group went to Tim Hortons for coffee, and we were required to order our drink in French. After all, it's the national language of Quebec. After that, the group went to Wendake, a First Nations village, and then to dinner. On Thursday, the final day of our trip, we went to a delicious breakfast place, then a lesson taught about the war on the plains of Abraham. And were given free time to explore the upper town before everyone boarded the bus and endured the long trip home. This trip was truly life-changing, and it couldn't have been made possible without our beloved French teacher, Mrs. Meckelberg, and all of the hard work she put in to make this trip incredible. It was a trip I'll never forget. And like Mr. Fitzgibbons referenced earlier, Hadestown ticket information, that will be posted on the Bridgewater Rainham website shortly. Tickets are not on sale yet, but be on the lookout for when those two come out for sale. And thank you for your time, and I would like to welcome Rachel Corey to the stand.
Good evening, school committee. Tonight I'm going to report on ongoing events that are occurring at BR. Yesterday was the first day of the STEM Day events and presentations at BR. The RMS 8th graders came to BR and got to hear from staff, students, and club leaders about how BR has been a source of great opportunities and memories. They also experienced tours by many student leaders, including myself, where they got a snapshot around the school with some stops in teachers' rooms and many stories told by our student tour guides. The BMS students will be having their turn for Step Up Day tomorrow. Also, yesterday, the National Honor Society held a very successful Pizza Bowl event in the BR cafeteria. This was a wonderful night where many individuals and families came to try out the most beloved local pizza shops. All they needed was $5 to enter, and then they were able to get 8 slices from any pizza brand that they wanted to have, which was buffet style, and they got to try many different pizza companies that are local, as a form of advertising for those many companies and as a form of enjoyment for the people coming. I volunteered as one of the members to help sell the pizza, and I truly enjoyed the event. It was so nice to see members of our community socialize over pizza, and there was also a gift card raffle, so a winner got to get all those goodies. Thank you, and I hope you have a great night. I now welcome Sophia.
January, a ski trip was hosted by the school as a fun way for students who have skied before to take a trip, and for other students who've never gone to try it out. A bus full of excited skiers and snowboarders eagerly left after school on Friday, January 29th, and headed up to Wachusett for a night of fun. On another note, TJ Squared recently attended our first competition. While we didn't bring the official robot with us, as we're still working on it and we didn't want to bang it up before our next competition, we managed to try out some new ideas and get rid of some ones that didn't work quite as well. We just considered it a resounding success. We managed to successfully win many of our matches until our loss in the semifinals, unfortunately eliminating us from the competition. We were incredibly proud of the students we sent, however, and we believe they did an amazing job. Thank you, and I now introduce Kayla to the stand. Good evening. Tonight I'll be sharing the initiatives that COSPAR has been working on and the achievements of the Bridgewater Random Track and Field team. In honor of American Heart Month, COSPAR encouraged the VR community to wear red for National Red Day, helping raise awareness of women's #1 killer, cardiovascular disease. They have also been holding Heart Friday announcements, raising awareness for heart health by reporting data on Fridays that are relevant to health, high school students, and educators. Students and staff were also able to stop by a table at lunch to purchase a red ribbon to show their support. Also, the VR track and field team had a handful of athletes qualify for the Division II Indoor Track and Field Championships on February 13th and Meet of Champions on the 22nd. The track team is looking forward to a banquet being held this Thursday to celebrate the hard workers of the season and recognize their achievements. Thank you, and I would like to welcome Sydney to the stand. The class of 2027 Student Council had our Valentine's Day fundraiser before break. We sold roses with the option of a single rose for $1 or a personalized message for more. Then we assembled the orders and delivered them to advisories to be distributed. We're happy to say that the fundraiser did extremely well, and we were able to make many of our students and staff stay. In addition to this, the school-wide Student Council has returned back to VR. Before this, student councils were assigned and curated by class and year. Now it is a choice for students across all years to come together and help the school. Our 3 main objectives we are hoping to achieve soon are finding cost-effective ways to decorate our school, creating a survey to give to the student population, and also finding ways to recruit new members to help diversify and bring new ideas to the student council. Thank you for your time.
I just want to say thank you to the Student Advisory Council for their report. And I also want to give a shout out to Mr. Lucia. He brought back Ski Club this year, which I know a lot of students were really excited about. And Madam Miller for taking the students on this trip to Quebec over February break. Those two, the club and that trip, was a really great way for students to get new experiences. So I just want to say thank you to Ms. Watson for that. And if you could just share that with those teachers, I appreciate that. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. All right, moving on, BRRH course schedule. Ms. Watson.
Good evening, school committee, Superintendent Powers. Before I present on the changes to the course selection booklet, I do just want to take a moment to let you know about Gianna Toomey. So the National Merit Scholarship Program has determined which of the 16,000 semifinalists who were named back in September of 2024 met all the requirements to advance to the finalist standing in the competition. I am pleased to announce that Gianna Toomey has advanced to the finalist position. Of the 16,000 finalists, approximately 15,000 will move on to the finalist position. Of those 15,000, 6,870 merit scholarship winners will be selected. That selection process is now in progress, and in March, the National Merit Scholarship Corporation will begin notifying the scholarship recipients and their respective schools. In my 26 years at VR, I can't think of more than one student that comes to mind that made it this far in the competition. So this is an outstanding achievement. Kudos to Gianna, her dedication, her hard work, her commitment, one that others can definitely aspire to. So I'm hoping that I have good news as we move forward that will continue. It also seems an appropriate time to announce that Gianna is officially the valedictorian of the class of 2025. So huge, huge accomplishment for her. Course selection. We did submit our course selection book to the superintendent for his review. Unfortunately, due to staffing shortages, anticipated budget impact, we do not have much to change going into next year. We do have one addition that we're looking to make. It's contingent on staffing. If there's a possibility of getting an additional PE teacher, we would be looking to introduce a new elective in the PE department for upper class students to take. Currently, juniors and seniors don't have the opportunity to take physical education, so it would be offered to those folks. And we are going to make a little swap in the math department. This year, we ran an inclusion section in statistics, and next year, we kind of want to broaden that, so we're going to move it to our selected topics course, which is aligned to like a college level course, but taught at the high school level. We are hoping to still run with our 18 AP courses. That's obviously contingent on staffing as well as student enrollment. But I'm happy to answer any questions if you have regarding the course.
Questions from Ms. Watson? Ms. Davenport?
Is the highlighted yellow, is that supposed to signify something on the book? Or is that just?
Oh, you've got the full book there?
Oh, I guess, yeah, it was just in the folder.
That's okay. The highlighted yellow is probably parts that either changed from year to year,
Oh, okay.
or I'll go back and make sure that it's all accurate before we finalize it to go to print.
Okay, all right.
That was a good question.
Other questions? Ms. Roberta?
I have a question. I've heard a little bit of rumor that, good or bad, I know that kids in freshman and sophomore year have had to take a semester of PE, I believe, and I've heard next year that there would be no PE offered at the freshman level.
So I'm glad you brought that up. So that's actually a point that I should have clarified more. Ninth grade PE is not changing at all. So it's currently a semester of PE, and then those students in the alternate semester either take a business class or an art class or a music class, staying exactly the same. 10th graders take a semester of PE, and then they take a totally separate semester of health. We're going to merge them together and do a wellness year. So it's really the same thing, but a little different. So they'll have a mixture of class time, gym time, outdoor time, but for the whole year instead of semester.
Okay, that makes sense. They're a little misunderstood.
Thank you. Yes, no, but thank you for bringing that up.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Seeing none? I guess we'll move on to Nia's presentation.
I know that you folks do have the full slide presentation, so, oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, we need to vote to approve it. Sorry, getting ahead of myself. Is there a motion to approve the course schedule? By Ms. Close, second by Ms. King. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you. Thank you for keeping me on track, Ms. McDougal. All right, so now moving on to Nia's presentation.
Excellent. Thank you. So the slide presentation has been provided to you folks. I actually shared it with the faculty today at our faculty meeting. I just want to take a quick opportunity just to summarize the last year and a half in regards to our NIASC accreditation, where we are now, where we were, and where we are now, and kind of where we're going. I hope you had an opportunity to review it. I'm happy to answer any questions at the end if you folks have any. As you know, during the last school year, during 23-24, the high school participated in an extensive self-reflection, and that's part of our ongoing accreditation process. The self-reflection report was written by all members of the high school staff and included input from parents, families, as well as our students. It's viewed as both research and reflection, and it helps us focus our vision and our quest for continuous improvement. The self-reflection report also helps inform the school's growth and school improvement plan. The collaborative conference visit took place at the high school over the course of 2 school days this past fall. It was October 21st and 22nd. During their 2-day visit, they observed over 40 different classrooms, met with administrators at both the building level as well as central office level. They met with teachers, staff members, students, and parents and guardians, and they also reviewed the school self-reflection report that we had written. The goal of the visit is for the NEASC team, which is an independent outside professional organization group of people, to review and determine the extent to which the high school is aligned to the standards for accreditation and identify priority areas for growth and improvement. After the visit, the NEASC team finalized their report and they did submit it to the high school. So what happens next? This month, we developed and wrote our growth plan based on the findings in the report. By June of next year, so that's June of 2026, we will have to implement the action steps in our school growth plan and write our summary reports. In the fall of 2026, we will host the decennial accreditation visit. That's like the culminating visit. The decennial accreditation visit, it's the final visit. It's similar, but it's larger than the collaborative conference visit. Team members will again arrive to the high school. They'll determine the progress that we're making in meeting the action steps that are proposed in our school growth plan. The result of the decennial visit determines whether or not we maintain our accreditation or move to probation or lose our accreditation. I'm happy to answer any questions. There will be more information as we obviously proceed with this.
Questions on the study, Mr. Conrad Alberto?
So on the summary that you gave us, there's some action priority items in here that you've clearly laid out kind of the resources needed. Some of them require funding and staffing.
Yes.
So if we do not do that and we do not have the funding to do this, what is the potential outcome of when they come back? Lose accreditation, put us on probation?
So there's different levels that they can do. I'm glad that you asked that question. I can't speak for them. I'm not sure what they would do. I guess it would depend on which ones we don't meet. Out of the 4 priority areas, 2 are viewed to be critical areas, number 1 and number 2, meaning you have to have those in place to remain accredited, and if you don't, you stand the chance of losing your accreditation. 20 years ago when we went through the process, we were put on probation. So we didn't lose the accreditation, but they gave us time to work on the aspects that we had to fix. Some of them were fiscally dependent. This building was the result of one of them. Some of them were not. They might have been curriculum-based. I can't remember exactly 20 years ago, but I do remember going on probation was a scary thing. You don't want to lose your accreditation as a high school or as any school. So we're going to work hard on these, but as you noted, in the priority areas, many of them are either contingent on staffing time and or money.
You want to follow? No. Okay. Other questions? Seeing none? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Moving on to consent agenda. Did you want to step away? Approval of minutes from January 26th. Declaration of some surplus, 4 chairs, 4 conference room chairs, 20-plus-year-old plow truck, acceptance of gifts and grants, as I indicated, whilst moving and storage for office of furniture, had given us a bunch of stuff for which we're very grateful. Approved the general ledger warrants from January 23rd, February 6th, and February 20th. Acknowledge the receipt of the Reed's Collaborative Annual Report Agreement and the Personnel Report as submitted by our HR Director. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Made by
Second.
Ms. Martelli, seconded by Ms. Conrad Loberto. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you, Mr. Loesch. And moving on now, we can get to administrative and school committee reports. Report of the superintendent, Mr. Bauer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the school committee, members of the administrative team, and guests here tonight. I am here to provide a brief overview of the superintendent's educator evaluation process in terms of my progress towards my goals. Obviously, there'll be a full presentation towards the end of the year where you will complete the evaluation of the superintendent, but as required, I'm here to provide a mid-cycle review. My first goal that was approved by school committee was a student learning goal. 60% of English language learners will meet their DESE established progress targets as measured by the 2025 access test. As we talked about this is one that really we won't have a lot of evidence until later in the year because the test the testing window is open now. Many of our students have already completed that, but the testing window closes February 28th, so we we may have some students still within that window. We tentatively expect results reported towards the end of April, and then paper results mailed to the district, and we'll be able to distribute those in May. So obviously having additional information for you then. The second part of that was to make sure that we were providing professional development to our faculty and staff in regards to best practices with instruction to our English language learners. And through the new platform Elevation, I included there the Elevation slides that we shared with our faculty during November to all of our buildings. We did a professional development program. And this is one area that I think obviously we've been able to self-reflect as great as the feedback is that we're getting from the faculty and staff that are participating in those professional development modules. We realize we haven't necessarily created a structure and time for our staff to participate in those. A lot of them are doing it above and beyond and outside of the workday. So even just already assessing what we need to do differently next year and making those part of our professional development cycle to be able to provide teachers the opportunity during the workday to be able to take some of those professional development offerings. Also part of this goal was the creation of an LPAC, which is the English Language Parent Advisory Council, much like our CPAC, except for our English language learners. Our plan this year was to have a fall meeting and one again in the spring. I'm pleased to report that we did have a meeting on October 24th, 2024, at the Bridgewater Middle School in the library. I did link several items there for you. The first one is the meeting invite. You can see the invite that was sent out to parents. It also shared with our parents of our English language learners during parent-teacher conferences. And individual meetings, individual outreach, and then obviously you can see the translated copies in all the different languages that our families speak. The second link there is the actual meeting folder for that evening, what was accomplished, what was on the agenda, I should say, the presentation that we shared, again, in translated languages of all those that responded. And we tentatively have a spring LPAC meeting scheduled for April 3rd, 2025. But I will certainly keep it informed of that. And lastly, part of that goal was the language acquisition team process. As I've shared with you in the past, language acquisition teams have to be held for students that need to be placed on a English learner student success plan, because they did not make enough progress on the 2024 access. Obviously, we'll only really know that how they did once the 2025 results come out, but we did have to place them on a success plan. Obviously, that only applies to students in grades 2 and above. We did have a set of meetings this past fall. I did link that meeting schedule there for you, and obviously another meeting will happen in the spring as well. I know a question was asked about the number of English language learners by building, so that is also on that document that is linked there. The second goal was a professional practice goal. I will engage with at least one student group per month to assess their experiences with high quality, equitable instruction and course offerings, as well as extracurricular activities in order to ensure the student voices shape programmatic decisions and offerings. I've had the opportunity to meet with a couple student groups and obviously have additional ones scheduled coming up. So excited about that. I was able to meet, as I share with you here, in December with the high school student government group, where we talked about the budget process, and I also we collaborated on developing a student survey. I shared with them a potential survey that I wanted to share out, and they gave feedback on that. And obviously, as you heard tonight, they're also in the process of developing a student survey for themselves. But I did link the student survey that was created and distributed. In February, I had the chance to meet with a high school social justice group. Again, it was an awesome opportunity for me to be part of it. We talked about, obviously, the state of the country and some of the fears that these students and their families are currently experiencing with some of the new executive orders that have been out. Obviously, some of our students, arrived to Bridgewater Rainham from countries all across the world, and we certainly welcome them with open arms. But you can imagine that has caused some angst with those students and their families. But we assured them that obviously we were a safe and supportive environment for them. I think they appreciate hearing that from faculty, staff, and And then I did obviously link the district's correspondence to families there that we did send out about some of the executive orders that were issued, as well as our internal protocol. And then I also shared with you the student survey that was sent out. It was distributed to students in grades 6 through 12. I know we were looking for at least a minimum of 10% response rate. Pleased to share that we had a 26% response rate of all the students that we sent it out to. So great response. Already gotten some feedback on that survey in terms of expanding the questions that were asked to try to get some additional information. So whether we resurvey the students or making some of that feedback part of the future meetings. Have meetings already scheduled with some other student groups, and also in the process of working with the principals to capture some other groups that we haven't been able to meet with. But in March, I'm meeting with the student council over at Rainham Middle School. Also, the high school Tri-M Music Honor Society. Ms. Watson is championing that effort, so I'm going to join her at a future meeting. The GSA Club at the high school as well, and then the Bridgewater Middle School Climate and Culture Club. I'll be meeting with them at the end of March. So again, looking forward to those. I think I've shared with you. This is not to be offensive to any adult that I meet with on a regular basis, but the best meetings I attended were ones with the students. So very much looking forward to those. The third goal is a district improvement goal. Again, it was revolving around the budget process. This was a goal that obviously I had last year as part of my educator evaluation, and we decided to continue this goal for this year because we knew the budget would be so important. So it was during the 24-25 academic year, I'll work with both town governments and district staff to identify, advocate for, and secure funding to support our student success plan, the district's mission, excellence in education for all. Again, I linked some documents there for you for your review. One being the FY26 budget timeline, the overview of the FY26 town outreach and meeting schedule that I've had with town officials going back to late summer, early fall. Obviously, the communication that we've sent out to our stakeholders across the district. We did hold a parent-caregiver budget presentation evening. It was well attended, probably one of our best attended parent nights that I've been part of. We had 65 parents and caregivers attend, in addition to our faculty and staff. So again, very pleased with the response that we had from our parents. And I think it was, hopefully they found it very informative. It really was to give an overview of the budget development process. It wasn't necessarily to get into specific numbers, but it was done the week before the preliminary budget presentation, so I wanted to be able to provide some context and some background knowledge for our parents and caregivers to the numbers that I would present the following week. And then obviously I included the FY26 preliminary budget that was presented in January. Then goal 4 was also a district improvement goal. This was to expand our offerings for our students, all of our students, but specifically our students with disabilities. During the 24-25 school year, in conjunction with the Special Olympics of Massachusetts, the MIAA, and the district, we will begin to develop a unified sports program at the high school level for students with disabilities and student partners. Very excited to report that we have our first session complete. We were actually able to run a unified strength and conditioning program. I did include a picture there on the progress report. We were able to provide a little swag for our students that participated. So we're very excited, but just to kind of walk you through the timeline going back to September. We've obviously had several internal meetings to begin to plan for the implementation of the Unified Sports Program. So starting in September, you can see we obviously met with Special Olympics to plan for this as well. Mr. O'Connell and I attended a training in November for program administrators with the Special Olympics of Massachusetts. And I can't say enough great things about the Special Olympics of Massachusetts and the support that they have provided us. They're always responsive to any time we reach out with a question, and they've actually been on site several times, which has been fantastic. But in January, we also held a student information session and a parent caregiver information session that evening. And pleased to report we had 57 students and parents, caregivers respond that they would attend those information sessions. And pleased to report that everybody showed up. We had 19 parent caregivers respond that they would come, and they all came. And we had 38 students respond, and they all showed up as well. We gave an overview of the Unified Sports program in general. We did spend a lot of time talking about the strength and conditioning program, but also the other offerings that we plan to offer. Registration is now open for Unified Track and Field, which will run this spring. We're very excited about that as well, but I don't have concrete numbers for you in terms of how many students plan to participate in that because registration is still open. I can tell you though, however, we did have 16 students participate in the Unified Strength and Conditioning program. It was overseen or coached by Mr. Baldeck and Ms. Prevelar, two teachers here at the high school. I had the opportunity to come over for several sessions and watch the students participate. Again, it was great, not just watching them progress through the program, but also the way they interacted with each other. Ms. Watson and I were actually talking about that. We're really excited to see as we start to expand this program, the relationships that happen in small groups and small cohorts in an after-school setting. We're really starting to transcend the school day, seeing these students hopefully eventually interact with each other, not just after school, but also during the school day. So again, we're excited, but you can see a lot of smiling faces in that picture. I think it kind of sums up how the students felt. And a lot of positive feedback already from the students and staff and parents thus far. So we're excited about track and field, and we hope next year, all goes well this year, that we'll be able to run both of those sessions again, as well as expand to basketball. That concludes my overview.
Questions or comments on the superintendent's mid-year updates? Ms. Mando?
Just a quick question, how many families attended the LPAC meeting in October?
Was it seven? 7 families.
Is that a good number, or?
I think for our first one, yes, we were pleasantly surprised. We had actually tried to start an LPAC last year and even the year before, and we'd get no response. So the fact that we got 7, it's progress for us. Certainly we want to see that expand. I think what we're trying to do is capture other opportunities when we run our multi-lingual awards ceremony in the spring for our English language learners. That is very, very well attended. Auditorium is packed, so how can we kind of capture some of those people?
Ms. Martelli, did you have something?
It was me.
Ms. Stephanie?
And I was thinking if she knew what I meant. On the EL enrollment by school, you have 2 columns. One that says number of ELs, February 24, 25, and then C, it just says number of ELSPs. What is that?
So the number of students that required a success plan.
Oh, okay, I didn't get the SP. Okay, thank you.
No problem, sorry, I should have said.
That's okay.
Questions this way, Mr. Loach?
Just more of a comment. It's great to see the Unified Sports Program up and running. The amount of progress it's made in such a short amount of time, it's a great inclusive opportunity for all. So.
Thanks for that feedback. I really, again, to that point, Ms. Watson and Mr. O'Connell have really led the charge, and I'm happy to, support them however I can. But when you come over and see the smiles on those kids' faces, it's well worth any effort that needs to be put in to get that up and running. So thank you for that feedback.
Ms. Conrad-Leverto?
You talked a little bit, Mr. Powers, about your meeting with the social justice group. I was just curious, in some of the angst that's out there right now with our some of our new students or students from other countries. I'm hearing from other districts, kids are not coming to school because of the angst. And I'm just wondering if we are seeing more chronic absenteeism or absences due to angst around, again, immigration issues and everything.
We definitely saw that in pockets, especially when those executive orders first came out. That was feedback that came to Ms. Richards as she oversees the EL program. Heard from the EL staff that, hey, I'm getting some outreach from parents. I'm not going to send my student to school until this is resolved. That really was kind of what prompted us to take action and put some internal protocols in place and then share those out. I do believe that those students that were being held out have been coming. Just again, I don't want to say they, feel relieved, but at least we put something out as a district that we will not engage in this.
Anything further? I'd just like to thank Ms. Mayville for her continued work on the superintendent's evaluation. I think the process has worked really well this year, Ms. Mayville, so thank you very much for that. I certainly appreciate it. appreciate it for one. All right, moving on, budget subcommittee report, Ms. King.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The budget subcommittee met several times since the last meeting. As you know, we're going through the budget fiscal year 2026 process. We met on February 3rd, February 4th, February 11th, February 18th, and then just before this meeting on February 26th. On February 3rd, 2025, the budget sub met at 5:30 in the superintendent's conference room. In attendance were Mr. Fitzgibbons, Mrs. Martelli, Mrs. Davenport, Superintendent Powers, Assistant Superintendent Barry, Mrs. Babalola, Ms. Robichaud, Mrs. Healy, Mrs. McDougall, and myself. The sole item on that agenda that evening was the fiscal 2026 budget. As Mr. Powers had just presented his preliminary budget at the prior school committee meeting, we went over his presentation and the members gave feedback, concerns, and discussed our action plan between then and the March 12th public hearing. Mr. Powers discussed how he and the business office were reviewing the budget and cutting any lines where they could. We discussed the community concerns regarding class size, offerings, and special education. Also, the subcommittee noted the town's financial concerns. Our strategy going forward from that meeting was to meet regularly, meet with the towns as much as possible in person, as well as telephone calls, and to continue reviewing different budget scenarios. On February 4th, 2025, the budget subcommittee met at 6 o'clock at the Academy Building at the Bridgewater Town Council meeting. In attendance were Mr. Fitzgibbons, Mrs. Martelli, Mrs. Davenport, Superintendent Powers, Mrs. Babalola, and myself. Pursuant to the Bridgewater Town Charter, which requires an annual joint meeting during the budget cycle with the Bridgewater Rainham School Committee, the budget subcommittee attended a joint town council meeting. At that time, the Bridgewater Town Council, the acting Bridgewater Town Manager, and the Bridgewater Finance Committee. At that time, Mr. Powers highlighted points from his budget presentation, and Mr. Powers and the budget subcommittee took questions, concerns, and comments from the Bridgewater Town Council regarding the fiscal year 2026 budget. On February 11th, 2025, the budget subcommittee met at 5:30 in the superintendent's conference room. In attendance were Mr. Fitzgibbons, Mrs. Martelli, Mrs. Davenport, Superintendent Powers, Assistant Superintendent Barry, Mrs. Babalola, the Director of Business Services, Ms. Robichaud, District Treasurer, Ms. Argenti, Fiscal Assistant to the Business Office, Ms. Sidorowitz, who took meeting minutes, and myself. Again, the budget subcommittee continued discussions on the current budget proposal following the joint town council meeting feedback, as well as meetings Mr. Powers had with town officials in both Rainham and Bridgewater that week. Mr. Powers and Mr. Fitzgibbons had also met with Senator Kelly Dooner. The budget subcommittee reviewed the budget where line items have increased, especially transportation due to new students coming in, and also made further cuts where they could. He also discussed and reviewed several proposed budget scenarios based upon the financial positions of both towns. The budget subcommittee meeting approved the minutes of February 3rd. On February 18th, the budget subcommittee met again in the superintendent's conference room. In attendance were Mr. Fitzgibbons, Mrs. Martelli, Mrs. Davenport, Superintendent Powers, Assistant Superintendent Barry, Mrs. Babalola, Ms. Robichaud, Ms. Argenti, Mrs. McDougall, and myself. There was a discussion and a vote on the declaration of surplus, which was included in the consent agenda. We also approved the minutes of February 11th, 2025. The budget subcommittee continued strategy discussions and different budget scenarios. Following a lengthy discussion and review of different scenarios and ways to move forward, a further budget subcommittee meeting was scheduled for February 26, 2025 at 6 p.m. prior to this full school committee meeting, and to invite officials of both towns to obtain feedback and discuss financial options for the budget. Accordingly, on February 26, 2025, not 2026, I'm getting ahead of myself, the budget subcommittee met at 6 p.m. in the library at the Bridgewater Rainham Regional High School. In attendance were Mr. Fitzgibbons, Mrs. Davenport, Superintendent Powers, and myself, as well as many other members of the community. Bridgewater Town Councilors, Rainham Selectmen, Finance Committees of both towns, and Town Managers of both towns. At that time, this is not something that we have done in the past, or at least since I've been on school committee, is have a joint meeting with the towns at this point in the budget discussion. As you know, we create our budget. Mr. Powers presents a preliminary budget. The budget sub goes back and forth. We narrow that down to a budget that we present at the public hearing on March 12th. We go back, we might make edits to it based on feedback, and then at the end meeting in March 26th, we present a budget to the full school committee that is voted on and sent to the towns. However, we do not fund our budget, so creating that budget in this vacuum, knowing that the towns are in financial distress potentially, we felt we needed to talk to the towns and get feedback and show them our concerns of what the budget looks like right now and what their feedback might mean staffing-wise, operationally for next year. We wanted to know how are we going to get through this budget cycle and what is the plan going forward? Because last year we were in this position and we got rid of 24 positions. And a year later, we hear again, potentially, to get rid of more positions if we don't get funded. So we needed to know, what is the plan going forward? We need to know, what are we going to do for this cycle and going forward? So it was an uncomfortable conversation. I don't know that they wanted to show all of their cards. But they were all there, which I was happy about. They all gave feedback, asked questions, commented. As of right now, the budget that Mr. Powers presented was $109 million, which is approximately a 21% increase to the towns. That's not able to be supported right now. They don't have a 21% increase available to give us, which would not decimate all of their other town departments. But at the same time, we're looking at it like we also can't bear the brunt of cuts on our end either, because we're at a critical tipping point. So we need to figure out where do we go from here without cuts and potentially going forward. So we got some feedback from them. We're going to provide more information from them and have more conversations. At the very least, I need to know that there's not going to be any cuts this year if we present a budget with no cuts. But if we do that, what is next year going to look like? We did discuss an override, which no one wants to say the word override, and I understand it means a tax increase to everyone in both communities, which is hard. There's a lot of people that are struggling or on a fixed income, but it can't be at the expense of the school district, which is the biggest draw in towns generally, and we are the biggest part of both towns' budget, but we can't bear the brunt of continuously getting cuts. So we need a long-term plan, and potentially, hopefully, an override would be that plan. So like I said, we're going to have more budget meetings between now and March 12th and March 26th before we present at the public hearing and then present a final budget. But hopefully we have more conversations with the town and come up with a plan to bridge this gap and at the very least not have layoffs, but at the best try and figure out a plan, because we can't every year to year be back here. Questions?
I have a question. I'm gonna just put it out there. I was at the budget meeting, I heard people talking about maybe an override, maybe not an override, spend money on another evaluation. I'm just curious they want us to go back and look at the numbers again. Any of the conversations, not that I put this out there lightly, my kids all participate. If we cut sports, if we cut extracurriculars, would that mean we don't have to lay off teachers? We keep hearing this conversation of it gotta make it hurt, to make people like stand up and say we need something to change. It's already hurting. But again, I know they asked me to like show different numbers and what that would potentially mean. If we cut sports and extracurriculars, what would that do for us? Again, it's not something I think is the right direction to go, but we do need teachers in our classrooms at this point.
So I think, I can answer it in broad terms. Certainly when we look at what we it would not make up the potential shortfall that we're faced with now. Certainly, when you look at, over $1 million, I mean, could potentially be $1 million worth of jobs that we're able to save. But it certainly wouldn't be enough if we were just to eliminate extracurriculars in athletics. That would not cover the shortfall at this current point.
Other questions? Is Mr. Demmer?
Just to follow up on that, obviously it's a portion of our budget, and obviously it's not going to cover the whole shortfall. How much of the shortfall would it cover?
Based on some of the numbers that were shared this evening, from the towns in terms of what their percentage is, we kind of looked at a couple different scenarios. Again, it would probably be, if we remember the latter scenario that was talked about this evening with Rainham giving the 3, Bridgewater giving the 4, 6, 7, and I know we shared that this evening. I can't say that's 100% confirmed. We'd be at roughly about a $5.1 million deficit. So certainly $1 million plus.
That's a deficit to level services.
Yes, correct. Deficit to level services, $1 million plus, certainly offsets that. And again, saves $1 million worth of position, but it certainly would not make up that deficit.
Other questions? Mr. Loesch?
So just sitting there this evening in the prior meeting, it definitely sounds like we need to do a more comprehensive job of educating both sides of the table in terms of what is going to be the impact long-term moving forward if we don't actually fund this budget to an appropriate level. We're going to lose teachers. We're going to continue to have the special education issues we have across the district. It's only going to become more cyclical and more impactful as time goes on if we don't step up and do something to put forth a budget that actually educates our children in an appropriate manner. I mean, I'm hearing the same excuses on the town council side, but the same things we should do from their end. Year after year, we need to go after the state. Every single school district is doing this right now. It's not changing. It's not making a difference at this point. It's up for us to push for a budget that actually is going to move things forward for our kids and break some of the current cycles we have going forward in the districts.
Along those lines, Mr. Loesch, I would almost propose, I would be interested to see a one-pager, kind of an FAQ, is if we didn't get this funding, it would mean that our class sizes, I don't know what it would be, Mr. Powers, but our class sizes on average would be 35 kids, 40 kids. We would have no sports, we would have no extracurricular. I think we need to start putting that out there, very factual, I say factual, but somewhat factual, of what this impact is going to mean for our schools. And none of us want that, but unless people start understanding that, I don't know, again, what Mr. Loesch was saying is it's the same excuses over and over again.
Well, yeah, and it's been year to year the same, just pushing it down to another year, another budget cycle, and we're here again. And, they're saying a 3 and a 4.67, which is still a deficit. So that means we would have to take the cuts where they would be fine and not have 10 cuts. That's what makes me upset too, because why are we bearing the brunt of it?
Right, they
Not
haven't
that I
had to
want
lay off
any-
staff.
Not that I want any department to do that, but we've already laid off 24 last year. We can't handle any more.
And I think there was some recognition from Mr. Collins on the Rainham side around, the school did lose 24 positions last year, and, the towns do need to step up to do something this year to try to alleviate any further loss on our side. So that was nice to hear.
Yeah.
Any other discussion? I'd just add one thing to the whole mix, and I've said it before, I'll say it again. I'll say it till I'm blue in the face. What we have to do eventually, we have to get the funding right, Mr. Loesch, you're absolutely right. But what then we have to do is control expenses, because we can't count on more than 3 to 3.5% growth in revenue, or we're gonna create structural deficits as we spend 4% plus, when revenue's only growing at 3.5% for the towns and from the state. So it's a complicated game, but you gotta figure it out. All right, moving on. quarterly budget report. Ms. Babalola, Ms. Robichaud. Tell us you found like $5 million.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, school committee members, and Superintendent Powers. I'm here to report this evening on the Treasurer's Quarterly Report of October 1st, 2024 through December 31st, 2024. Chapter 70, School Aid. This quarter we received $7,885,837. These payments are coming in timely at the end of each month. Athletic fees. Fiscal year 25, we estimated receiving $80,000. During this quarter, we collected $80,640. We have exceeded our yearly budgeted balance by $29,860. Investment of funds, interest earnings for fiscal year 25, we estimated receiving $45,000. Due to high interest rates, we collected $209,590.14 for this quarter. We have exceeded our yearly budgeted balance by $355,425.97. Miscellaneous receipts. We estimated receiving $65,000 for fiscal year 25. During this quarter, we received $8,706. We are still expecting to receive $56,163.50. Medicaid revenue. We have collected $79,445.48. We estimated receiving for this year $250,000, and we anticipate receiving $170,554.52 by the end of the school year. Parking fees. We estimated receiving $30,000 for fiscal year 25. We have received for this quarter $3,250. For this account, we have exceeded by $10,000 year to date. Rental of school facilities. We have collected $39,792.50 during this quarter. We estimated receiving $65,000 for fiscal year 25 and still anticipate receiving $12,482.50. E&D appropriations. We have transferred $2 million from E&D to support the fiscal year 25 budget as voted. Charter school. This quarter we have taken in $34,995, and year to date we've taken in $91,436. Construction debt appropriations and town assessments, we have been receiving these funds on a consistent and timely basis. This concludes my report.
Thank you. Questions for Ms. Robichaud? We'll go on with that. Oh, yes.
Do we still think the Medicaid projection is relevant? Because it doesn't seem so.
Well, Medicare, we budgeted the $250, and I did look previously, and we have collected previous years more than that. So we do feel this year it would be the same.
If I may. Mr. Chairman, we've also expanded our Medicaid reimbursement program. We're using the add-on to Power School service capture that now our service providers are in the process of being trained to be able to go in and log the services that they're providing. So to your point, we're trying to capture every dollar that potentially could be available. So we're hoping to see as we expand this and further that number does go up.
Further questions? Ms. Babalola?
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Good evening, Chairman, member of the school committee, Superintendent Powers, and members of the board. Tonight, I will be presenting the Q2 budget performance from October 1st through December 31st, 2024. everyone has a copy of the budget report in their packet. The fiscal year 25 budget still remains 96 million. Of that amount, 90.7 million is allocated for operation, 4.3 million for debt services, and approximately 1.8 million for capital projects. As of now, budget freeze has been in effect since October of last year. Prior to the freeze, we have encumbered funds for all known contractual obligations, including salaries and recurring expenses, and continue to do so as new obligations arise. As we all know, we are halfway through the fiscal year. So let's look at some numbers. We do have a budget report with us, but for tonight, instead of going through the line by line, item numbers by series, I will only be able to focus on a few points tonight. So please try to follow along as I mention the page numbers. So first, over 90% of all contractual salaries have been encumbered, and this is reflected throughout all the pages, the 14 pages of the report, especially for pages 1 through 4. If you look at the report, the salaries that were encumbered, you can see the majority of them on the first 4 pages of the report. Now, if you look at page 5 of the report, there's the substitute line items as detailed on that page. Those line items are doing very, very well, with a positive balance of $214,000. While this is very, very encouraging at this time, we know that unexpected leave of absences or even maternity leave will impact that number. So for now, we can say that those line items are doing well. And again, if you continue to flip over through page 6, top of page 6, you see some 1 or 2 salary line items encumbered, and also our textbook line items encumbered. But I want you to please flip over to page 9, where we have our 3,000 series, out of district line item numbers. These line item numbers are under continuous monitoring as well, while we are obligated by DESE to provide transportation for all students. The rising number of out-of-district placement has significantly increased cost, and that is why you can see the budgeted number for some of those lines lesser than what we encumbered. The reason being that, like what Mr. Parr said, influx of students needing the services that the district is required to provide. So, but this year, due to better forecasting, we're seeing a 64,000 positive number or positive balance in this series for this quarter. Whether this positive balance remains until the end of the fiscal year is actually contingent upon enrollment stability, because you never know a family that could move in that could need the special education service that we have to, that the district have to absorb. And again, if you continue to look at line items like the 4,000 series, which is our maintenance and operation of the buildings. Those lines are currently going within the budgeted projections. But I would like to direct attention to page 10, where we have our utility lines, item numbers. As discussed in prior budget meetings, we entered into new electricity and gas contracts at the start of this fiscal year. This budget is reflective of these changes. However, we continue to monitor those lines. And we all know that gas prices, even though we do have a contract, the delivery charges are going up. But we try to do as much as possible to forecast this way at the beginning of this budget season. So we were able to capture the majority of those expenses. And then as we continue to move on to subsequent pages, again, our spending in this quarter is within those forecasts. But when you look at the last page, on page 14 of the report, again, as previously mentioned, the growing number of special education enrollment and the diverse challenges that come with it has definitely impacted the cost in this 9,000 series. If you look at 9,000 series, you will notice some expenses that were encumbered and some balances in the negative. These are led to increase out of district placement. This is due to increase out of district placement. And the reason being that there are some services that we could not provide for our students in-house, that we have to send them out of districts to be able to get those services. But we are very fortunate to have some circuit breaker reimbursement funds, which will be applied to this overages by quarter. If you look at the range to date and year to date, we have applied part of circuit breaker reimbursement funding that we received from the state, and that is why those two columns are 0. But next quarter, the end of March, as we incur more expenses, we will be applying those reimbursements to those expenses. Also on the same page, you will notice that the year-to-date column shows a 36.9 million expenses, representing 38% of the total budget. Of that 36.9 million, we are spent 22.3 million in this quarter. And also, when you look at the encumbrance line, we have encumbered, again, the salaries, the known expenses. We have encumbered those expenses just to make sure that those will be taken care of and taken out of the bottom line. And that leaves us with 13.4, I'll say 13.8 million as our bottom line. As we continue in the year, it is important to note that the 13.8 million bottom line includes unencumbered expenses such as benefits, ongoing projects, and other services that we don't have any idea of what their numbers could be at this point. However, provide more updated numbers to us by definitely next quarter. So look at the report. Overall, I think the report is doing well, and hopefully next month there will be more concrete numbers to present. Also, in conclusion, I did provide a table and a chart just to capture the trends of where we were 4 years ago, fiscal year 22 through 25, just to be able to capture the trends of where we were then and where we are now. And reviewing if you have time, please go ahead and review the chart as well as the table, and feel free to follow up with any questions that you might have. And with this,
Questions
I
for Ms.
rest my
Bevel?
report.
Oh, Ms. Mayfield.
Thank you for the visuals and walking us through it. I just wanted a little bit of clarification because I'm not understanding. How does the year-to-date column interact with the encumbrance? Specifically, as we're spending down, is the encumbrance amount being reduced, or is it just a fixed number?
It's not a fixed number. As we're spending them, it's reducing. It's reducing. By the end of March, I believe, or May, you'll see those encumbrance dropping off as we're spending, or those that we do not need, we release them and it flows through to the balance.
And that's very helpful. So is it a direct correlation between the year-to-date column and the encumbrance as we spend?
Right.
Thank you.
And then I'd just add, Ms. Mayfield, if you add up the year-to-date and the encumbrance, and then you look at what the budget was, that budget balance is what's left over as of the estimate of the moment, so to speak. So kind of gives you an idea of where we think we're going to end it. But, you know, as Ms. Babalola said, certain items we don't do an encumbrance on. So even though it looks like we're halfway through, we're really probably on budget because we're halfway through.
So just to clarify, the major lines that we're looking at right now, this out of district, will be offset by circuit breaker. We should see that next month.
Yes.
A little cleared up.
Not all though,
Partial.
partial, yes.
And then the homeless transportation, have we applied any retenimento to that?
No, not yet.
Okay, so that should be offset by that as well.
I have a question on that, I guess. If it's revenue, does it flow through your sheet or does it come in cash? Through the treasurer?
Treasurer.
So the budget is still going to look off, but we have money coming in to offset how bad the budget looks. Yeah, so it's not going to magically fix that budget number. It's just going to be able to offset it.
Right.
Got it. Thank you. All right, anything else? All right, seeing none, thank you, Ms. Bevel. Appreciate it. Moving on to new business, approval of payroll warrants dated January 23rd, February 6th, and February 2025. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Demarino, second by Mrs. King. Discussion, Mr. Demarino? Ms. King? Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? It's unanimous. All right, next item of new business is first read of the 2025-26 school calendar. Has anyone got any comments right away from the superintendent to take back? Otherwise, we'll keep it at the school committee and vote at the next meeting. Yeah.
Is there any rhyme or reason to placement of the these days?
So we start with some of the ones that are required, obviously, contractually. And then we also look at parent-teacher conferences when those have to occur. And then we try to really essentially work around those because we know, obviously, in some cases it could be every other week. In some months it seems like we're having a try to be mindful that it's never back-to-back weeks if we can avoid it. But we obviously start with some of those ones that we know we have to have at a certain time of the year because of either conferences or contractual language, and then try to build off from there. But certainly open to other suggestions or feedback on it.
I think just sometimes for consistency for kids, especially when they're already on break and then they come back immediately to a day a week when there's a half day, it just isn't good for kids. So their consistency, I totally get it for teachers and their need for professional development. They're definitely warranted. I just think for consistency's sake, if we can look to place those not back end of breaks and then go weeks in between, it just makes more sense for consistency for kids.
Sure.
Other comments, Mr. Connor?
I just had, it's a dream, but it may not happen. From looking at the calendar, we have a day and a half before the December break. It's only a day and a half, and then we go on December break. Is there any flexibility just to say give the whole 2 weeks off? And there may not be, but it was just kind of like, oh, well, the kids are here for a day and a half, and then they go off for 8 days, right? I think the way I read it in December.
So,
Sorry,
yes,
I just
no,
like
no,
threw
100%.
it out there.
I, you know, and so I have somewhat of a different lens
You
now
probably should.
in this seat. I'm always looking towards, you know, potential snow days and how that impacts the end of the year. That is something that we did talk about. You know, obviously, when the holiday fell this year on the Wednesday, we did not give the full 2 weeks, and so you know, now that it falls on a Thursday, we did consider, you know, should we do the 2 weeks? But we felt as though it made more sense in this case not to do Monday, Tuesday off and come back, you know, for Friday. So it seemed to make more sense if we came in on the Monday, half day, or early release day on that Tuesday, and then head the Friday off. Certainly you can take that feedback and do a reworking of the days just to have options to bring back to school committee and see how that impacts the end of the school year if we were to do that. If that's the
Other comments on the calendar, Ms. Martellin?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure you check with the town halls, and make sure there's no elections that are gonna fall into.
Yes,
I
that's
know there's
obviously,
no,
right, that's always, you know, something we take into consideration. We have in the past, well, with the, you know, more of the smaller scale statewide or local elections, we have been able to operate school, not, you know, in some cases, obviously not ideal, but where they take place at Bridgewater Middle School and RMS, we've been able to manage. The larger ones, we certainly would try to avoid school. But right now, obviously last year was somewhat of a challenge because it occurred on the first day of school, and that's why we bumped it. But this year, we confirmed that there were no that would prevent us from starting.
Yeah, 25 and into 26 is pretty easy. It's going to be 26 into 27 is going to have the state primary and the state general. And then, obviously, every 4 years we get the presidential, it's a whole different story. All right, other questions, concerns on the calendar for the first read? All right, so you'll consider those, see what options might be out there, and we can bring it back next time. All right, new business, other businesses may probably come before the school committee after the agenda is posted. You heard a suggestion tonight on putting together a smaller committee of school committee members, town council, and town selectmen, and possibly staff level positions too. So I'd like to ask the consent of the school committee that I can go ahead and pursue that idea with the chair of the board of selectmen and Rainham, the town council president, and just ask for their suggestions as to what type of committee they might like to form. And I can bring it back at the next meeting. Is that okay with everyone? If you want to make a motion to that effect.
I'll make a motion,
Okay.
I'm totally for the record.
This is our second. Second by Mr. Lewis. Any discussion, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, great. So we'll keep moving on that front.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a good meeting, but it was rather unwieldy with that many people. All right, so back to public comment here. 12 minutes of open public comment. Try to keep yourself to 3 minutes, please. And please come down and state your name and address for the record and what you'd like to speak about.
Hello everyone, I'm Pat Driscoll, 35 Stonehill Lane. Thank you for all the time you spent on the budget. Just a couple of points that I'd like to make or ask. I know you can't answer questions, but what happens if the override doesn't pass? Are we taking a hard look at operations, maintenance, health insurance, and ways in analyzing those functions to see how we can self-insure to some degree, or privatize facilities, or privatize business operations in the district? I think we really need, when I talked about the audit, I think that's really where we need to focus our attention. We really need to develop a comprehensive plan of what we need to put in an RFP to get real numbers to compare it to having employees. The second question I have, because the goal is to get as much money as we can into the classrooms. The second question I have is school choice. Have we analyzed, I know we get $5,000 per kid that comes in. Have we analyzed what it costs to educate each one of those kids? How many of those kids in special ed, et cetera? So do we have a net revenue number on that? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Driscoll. As you say, we can't engage, unfortunately, but I think it's noted them down. And I believe he's familiar with your email address.
You are too.
Good evening, Ashley Mallard, 270 Grange Park, Bridgewater. I came tonight because I've been coming every night and I've been going to every meeting, and as I came today, after an hour meeting over in Merrill, my kid cried because I left the house today. Got it, Ash. I need leadership. And I'm not just talking to you, sort of just taking this opportunity to talk to my councilman and Rainham. Oh God, if I hear one more time suggesting that BSU can help satisfy our child's needs, I said my piece to that person, but that's not the leadership I need. I need someone at the table here telling them that doesn't work. That it's a waste of my time when I come to this meeting for 20 minutes, because it happened at the previous one. Just hearing the numbers, thank you, Mr. Powers, for giving some solid numbers tonight. If we just took roughly 68 teachers, I just say that number because I know roughly how many are non-professional status who would be rifted under this situation. Multiply that by the average of like 29, that's 1,972 kids. If you took 10 teachers just from the high school, I have 130, okay? That's 130 kids that I take care of every day. That's 1,300 kids who are going to need to be placed somewhere. Off the top of my head, I can think of 3 non-professional status within throwing distance from me. I know these cuts are happening. I'm trying my hardest, and sacrificing a lot of my personal time, as I know many of you are. But I can scream from the mountaintops only so loud. They're going to listen to you, and you need to start saying hard numbers. We need to educate the public. And we need to say everything needs to be cut. I can't continue to watch this town fall. My child is going to go into this district. I grew up in this district, and I'm ashamed that we are saying we are afraid to ask for an override. I am proud to pay more in taxes if it raises the quality of education for everyone else. I'm happy to, and that's probably why I'm a teacher. But the cuts can't happen, and I am scared when I hear these numbers. I had teachers call me over vacation saying I have bills to pay, and what you're starting to see already is teachers leaving. We had one who put in their resignation recently, overworked and exhausted and going into the private sector. And we have other teachers who know they have bills to pay, and they're going to start applying to other districts. And we're going to lose the best. And not to say there are bad teachers here, but those teachers who have responsibilities and have higher end degrees and are valued for very significant specialized jobs are going to go, and they're going to get jobs other places. We cannot do this, and I encourage the school committee to give the towns a budget, and if they say they can't pay for it, let's go all the way and have the state come in and have a decision on where it needs to be. We cannot do this. You all know. I don't even need to say it to you. I'm saying it to the camera. We cannot send our kids to school with 24 positions lost from last year now and 70+ positions lost from last year. 100 people is like shutting down 2 schools. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Ms. Mallon. Sharp, if you can identify yourself for the record.
Elizabeth Sharp, 1000 South Street. I just have a few follow-up comments after the budget committee right before this meeting. So if the towns aren't able to give the district what is so direly needed to make the significant changes that we need, then I strongly feel it's time for the community to vote for an override. And I'm pleased that this conversation was brought up at the table tonight. I also agree with Ms. Conrad, who said that athletics and extracurriculars and arts, we can't afford these things without more money. I know we're already bare bones in this area, but I just don't think we have any business even offering these electives when we have 33 kids in a 3rd grade class. Do I want to see them go? No, but we just simply can't afford it with this current budget. I will say, the people of Bridgewater Rainham have a lot of pride for this district. And this district has a very, very large group of supporters, parents, grandparents, invested community members, who I think and know are fully committed to supporting an override so we can live in a town with a school district that we can be proud of. I understand that this decision ultimately is for the town councilors, and I will absolutely share this with them. But as was discussed tonight, some councilors stated that they thought it would be too rushed for an override vote to take place by July. That wouldn't give enough voters time to be informed in order to impact next school year. I strongly disagree with this. This major community problem cannot stand to be punted into next year. The people who are for this vote are for this vote, this year or next year. The people who are not for this vote will not be for this vote next year either, no matter how many Facebook rants go on between now and then or whenever this comes to fruition. So let's stop pushing the problem down the road. Let the voters show what they value, because the students and teachers of our town have already suffered too long. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comment? Public comment? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Christine Mackey, 36 Magnolia Way. I'm here again tonight, just like Ashley is. Obviously, we're on the same page. Tonight, I think we made a little progress in the area of saying out loud that we need an override. I think we've kind of batted around that word a little bit. And I've talked to people within the area about how that happens. And the last time an override happened, it's because the school committee begins to get the ball rolling and going. And I'll tell you this, they say that the time is too short between now and the next school year. I completely disagree. I am ready to go up in arms and say, hey, this is what we need for our kids. This is what we need for our district. I'll do that. I have friends who will do that. And as long as we can get that information out and tell them what it looks like. Because I promise you, there are parents out there that are like, as soon as you tell them that their sports are going to be canceled for their children, that's it, that's enough. And I've never seen advocates like a mother. And half of the people in this community are moms. And we will advocate for our children. I'll stand here today, along with all the other mothers in this room, predominantly moms. I'll say that here. I'm not saying that it's not dads too, but we will advocate tooth and nail for our children, because that's what we decided to do the moment we decided to have children. And we're going to invest in their future from now until the day that we die. So here we are. I say we do it. I say we go full force. I'm here to help. I know there's others that are here to help as well.
Thank you. Other public comment? issue. All right, moving on to announcements. Kindergarten registration opens on March 3rd. Check the website. School choice submission portal opens on March 3rd as well. Again, check the VR website. And then to remind everyone, March 12th is our FY26 budget hearing. Community members are encouraged to attend there. It can be a much more, let me say, less rigorous process of back and forth at a hearing than there is in this public comment that we have. So, encourage everybody to attend. It can be as long as we need to do it. We're certainly going to invite our state representatives, and we're certainly going to invite all of our town councilors and selectmen and finance folks to attend as well. Hopefully they can make it. All right, any other announcements from folks? No? All right, is there a motion to adjourn? Made by Ms. Davenport, second by Ms. Martello.